Good evening, everybody. My name is Carter. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to play GTA San Andreas while talking about There Will Be Blood. We are having a very 2007 evening, and I hope that you all are along for the ride. Now, I had never seen There Will Be Blood until 2 nights ago. I watched it for the first time 2 nights ago, and then I watched it for the second time last night. This has become one of my favorite movies of all time. I am normally quick whenever something like this happens to say, this is my favorite movie of all time, and then I give it a few months, and then I may knock it down a couple. But at the very least, movies that I feel this way about, movies that I want to turn on from the start immediately after finishing them, they make it into my top 5. And I gotta tell you guys, this and No Country for Old Men coming out in the same year is one of the greatest things that has ever happened to me personally as a viewer and lover of movies for such a long time. If you're at this channel and you're watching me right now, of course, you love movies too. We've all had these great experiences with them, and watching a movie for the first time that you know will end up being one of your new favorites is just... it's an experience that stays with me for days. I have not been able to stop thinking about this movie, so please forgive me if I get some of the information wrong. I've been watching so much content about it. I have watched interviews. I've read all the comments. I've gotten the behind the scenes. There's still probably things that I don't know, and that excites me even more because I just want to live in this world of There Will Be Blood. This weekend I watched, and I decided to watch 3 incredible movies that all have a spot in my top list. I don't know if it's top 10 or if it's top 15. I watched Gangs of New York. I watched There Will Be Blood, both for the first time. And then me and my girlfriend rewatched Sinners, which just solidified it as my favorite movie of the year. And honestly, one of my favorites from the entire decade. So we'll be talking about all of those things later. I've already made a Sinners video. It was, I think, my first or second review on my channel, so it's very, very bad. Poor quality, all over the place, so don't go watch that. I'm going to end up making a new one. Now, let's get into There Will Be Blood. If you have not seen this movie, I'm going to spoil it. If you do not care about getting it spoiled because you think you will not watch this movie, that's even better, because one day you will watch it and you'll realize that even though it has been spoiled, Daniel Day-Lewis is nothing that can be explained. He is, in my opinion, the beholder of the greatest acting performance of all time in this film that I have ever seen. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of other movies that I have never seen, but often when I hear people talk, they say, oh my God, that was one of the best acting scenes that I've ever seen in my life. No. This man was in every single scene, and this entire 2 hour and 31 minute screen time that it had. He was in every single scene, commanded the room. I know Quentin Tarantino got a lot of shit for the terrible comment that he made about Paul Dano, the one where he was being a lot more brutal, and it seemed like Paul Dano and him had some personal grievances. But he had a take before that was much more nuanced that I agreed with, and he basically said you could have put anybody in that room playing the supporting actor next to Daniel Day-Lewis, and they would have been blown out of the water, because obviously, if I'm going to sit here and tell you it's the best performance that I've ever seen, I don't think anybody holds a candle to it. I don't think that you could have put Leo, I don't think that you could have put anybody in that supporting role that would have made it better. I think Paul Dano was absolutely perfect, and he held his own with a man giving the greatest performance of his entire life. I haven't seen Lincoln, so this is just from what I've seen so far. I mean, the chops to be able to even hold up like that and not look like an absolute idiot was so impressive. So shout out to Paul Dano. Everybody is talking, they do this thing now because everybody knows that Daniel Day-Lewis was such an incredible performance that now everybody's overcompensated. Be like, we need to talk about Paul Dano. No one talks about Paul Dano. Yes, you all do, okay? Everybody's talking about Paul Dano, all right? And listen, as somebody who just watched that movie for the first time, yes, Paul Dano gave an incredible performance, but I have seen performances that were that incredible before. I have never seen something quite like that. That is the definition of unique. It was jaw-dropping, heart-stopping, whatever other thing that you want to rhyme that with to make it sound like a WWE quote. I don't care. Phenomenal, which means to me, it doesn't really matter if you know the context of this story, if you know what happens in the story, because he is so fantastic and takes you on such an incredible ride. So I say all that to say, this movie also happens to be absolutely incredible. Would you look at that? Of course, Daniel Day-Lewis, a man who cherry picks all of his works, goes into hiding, retires over and over and over again, is likely retired for good right now, is going to be selective with what he picks. And if he cares about his art enough to method act for 2 years preparing to play Mr. Plainview, then I think that it just goes to show any movie that he has his name attached to is going to, at the very least, be very good. Now, I watched Gangs of New York right after There Will Be Blood. I watched it yesterday, and then I rewatched There Will Be Blood after. I think that that was a little bit unfair, because now There Will Be Blood has made itself into my top list. So now anything that I watch in comparison that's not just like a shitty movie like Soul Plane to make me laugh, it's just gonna look worse by comparison. And I felt like it wasn't a fair shake of Gangs of New York, because it was very, very, very good, but I just couldn't stop thinking about Mr. Plainview. Bill the Butcher was an amazing character. Mr. Plainview is generational. It's undeniable. So, if you have not seen this movie before, you have likely seen a clip that I was worried would ruin it for me, because I've seen this clip 100 times. It's turned into a meme. A lot of this movie has turned into a meme. And I think that that's also a little bit of a shame, because as you're watching some of these moments, you really are like, man, none of this is funny to me. In this context of the film, nothing that is being said is funny. It's all so brutal. It's all so heartbreaking. Yes, there are hilarious parts in the movie. I'm not gonna lie, I laughed when Eli comes in at the end and says, the Lord has grabbed me in ways that I've never seen. He completely failed to alert me of the panic of this economy. And then he goes to start asking him for money. Very, very funny. Like, I definitely love that. But this movie is brutal. It's dark. It's heartbreaking. It shows this person who wants to make people feel the worst that they've ever felt towards the end as he just spirals into alcoholism. I mean, wow. So we start off... Oh, that's what I was going to say. Sorry, we don't do editing on this channel because I don't know how to and I can't be bothered. I work a job and I'm tired when I get home. The fact that I'm even making this video right now, the only reason why I'm doing it is because of GTA, okay? And as I'm about to die in GTA. Hurry up, CJ. Let's go. Anyways, you have probably seen the clip of him screaming, "I've abandoned my child, I've abandoned my boy," and it's this whole, meme that everybody's seen before, and it kind of ruins it for you. And so I was thinking the whole time while I'm watching it, oh my God, when is this scene gonna come up? Because he's got such a close connection with his son, all the way up until the accident with the beautiful, beautiful scene. He gets a derrick set up on this land that he basically swindled out of a family, and it's a huge oil derrick. They're about to make so much more money than Mr. Plainview has ever made in his entire life. And his son ends up getting injured and going deaf. And it was at that moment that I was like, man, I really, really hope that whatever this abandonment is of his child is a little bit more nuanced. And thankfully it was. So we're going to get to that. I think that if you have seen that scene, it does not ruin it for you. That is not going to take the entire film away like I thought it would for me. I was still, when that scene happened, when he's in the church on his knees screaming that he abandoned his child, I was crying. I cried 2 times in this movie. I don't normally cry during movies. I cried twice, and they weren't baby tears, okay? They were, holy shit, I feel like this man is really in front of me on the screen. This is not a character kind of tears, okay? So, we start off with 15 minutes of zero dialogue, showing Daniel Plainview in all of his glory. He's an oil prospector, an oil miner, driller, but he's very, very humble beginnings, and he's by himself, down in the hole, digging and trying to get oil, trying to strike, and as he does, he finds this big piece of silver. Well, he found that piece of silver, and then he broke his leg. But instead of just laying there and dying like most people normally would, he crawled all the way from the middle of nowhere to a town to get saved and to have his silver cashed in. With the silver cashed in, he was able to continue drilling with more people, and his mine ended up producing a good amount of oil. So we see him... Oh, and during all of this, one of the crew members dies, and then we see him with this baby in the basket. Now, I don't think that you're supposed to know on your first watch that is not his child, HW in the basket. I think that you're supposed to think, okay, this is just his child, and you kind of have to take him at face value, even though you kind of pick up on the fact that he's a snake oil kind of, oil tycoon. I mean, obviously these guys have a reputation about them. Everybody knows these old oil tycoons were the way that Daniel Day-Lewis portrayed Daniel Plainview. They were slimy. They were trying to take people for what they had. They knew things that other people didn't, and it made them feel so smart and like they could take anything from anybody. And so that's his entire thinking. We only see him as this humble man before he starts speaking. The moment that he starts speaking after 15 minutes, our first introduction to the beautiful voice of Daniel Plainview as well. Shout out to Daniel Day-Lewis for making such an iconic voice that everybody that has ever seen it, I mean, they're gonna know, obviously, from the moment that he starts talking, this is an iconic role. It's generational. You hear that voice, and he is so sure of himself. He's telling this town that they've got oil and that he can make the town great and he can save all of them if they just let him drill, and he'll pay them money and he'll bring them bread and all these things that you're thinking about it as somebody watching it in 2026 in the modern era, and you're going, oh my God, if I didn't have any bread and I could only eat potatoes for like years and years and years, this guy comes in here saying that he can just drill underneath us, get a bunch of oil, and we'll have bread coming out of our ears. I'm going to be like, hell yeah, bro, take everything that we have. I'm in no position to say no, and he knows that. So he parades this kid around, HW, saying that he's his. I might not have been smart enough to pick up on it, but I didn't know that he wasn't his until it's revealed later to HW's face in one of the most gruesome, heartbreaking scenes that I've ever seen in my life. And that is what good acting is. Good acting is not these people in these monologues screaming and shouting and that's it. Oh my God, did you see the way that he said I've abandoned my child? Yes, that really, really hit. And the reason why it hit is because of all of the other scenes before. It is perfect all the way around. I cannot stop talking about it. I have no direction for this video. I have so many thoughts streaming out of my head. I was just talking to Cisco, one of my best buddies, earlier, and I was telling him, dude, you ever watch a movie or play a game or hear a song and it just makes you inspired? It makes you happy that you live in a world where art exists and there are people out there that give a fuck about it enough to pretend, to make believe so good, to live as another person for so long just so that I can sit down on my Friday after a long week of working and I can escape into a character and have it sit with me. I saw somebody say, I can't wash Daniel Plainview off my body. He cannot leave me. I'm trying to get him away, but he can't leave me. And that's exactly how I feel. So we see all of his plans start coming to fruition while he's sort of showing you that he's just more slimy and slimy and slimy, devolving further and further into alcoholism. And I'm not going to sit here and go through every single scene, but I just want to say that the scene where they've taken the Sunday Ranch, which is his first big property, they've drilled, they've gotten the oil derrick, and the oil derrick gets lit on fire. HW loses his hearing and is in pain, and Daniel doesn't understand what's going on. Daniel has this moment with Fletcher, his right-hand man, as he's staring at this derrick that's just bursting into flames. Everything is just going insane. And he says to him, why do you look so miserable? There's an ocean of oil under our feet, and only I can get to it. And the guy says, well, is HW okay? And he just goes, no, he is not. And the dude just goes over and looks. He goes, where is he? He goes and looks for him in the tent, takes care of him while Daniel is standing out there, and he's staring at this fiery derrick with the most greedy, lust-filled eyes that I have ever seen conveyed without words. It is incredible. It's soul-crushing. It makes you feel so sad for this poor child that you believe still is his son. You believe this is his child. And now, because you know when he says that I've abandoned my child, you think to yourself, well, this is the reason why he's going to abandon him. And it sure as enough is. He doesn't understand what deafness is. He doesn't understand that you can just lose your hearing and that it won't come back. He thinks that his son will just be okay eventually and that this will all just fix itself, which it won't. It's not going to be like these other problems in his life. It won't fix itself. So what will he do? He will run away from his problems, and that's exactly what he does. He sends him away on a train, tells him that he's going to go speak to the conductor, not to move, sends him away, and that's when he abandons him. And that is when everything starts falling apart. Now, another scene that I thought was phenomenal. He doesn't think that he has any family members. He feels so alone. His entire life is just looking for this oil. He doesn't even care about the money at this point that comes with it because he's made so much. The whole point is the oil. He just wants to go and find it. It's the hunt. It's the chase. And so he meets a guy who claims that he is his brother. We find out later that this man has been lying to him all along, but he has completely become Daniel's best friend throughout the entire time that he's been lying to him about being his brother. Well, Daniel finally finds out, and instead of, saying, get the fuck out of here, even saying, yes, you lied to me, but you're my only friend and you're my business partner now and all these things, he murders him in cold blood after one of the most shocking and just one of the best scenes that I've ever seen in my life, with his brother spilling his guts and telling him that he didn't want to hurt him and all these things and that he is his friend, and Daniel asking, did he even have a brother? All of these things culminating into making him this even more terrible version of himself that we see in the last 30 minutes, and two of the greatest scenes, in my opinion, of all time, when his son, HW, comes to visit him after all this time of not seeing him. He comes and he's deaf and he's learned sign language and he has an interpreter, and Daniel is just so brutal to him. He's like, no, speak it with your own words. And at one point he speaks and he has, the voice of a person who has been deaf for years. So he doesn't talk in the way that he used to when he was a kid. And it's just so brutal. And the way that he speaks to him is terrible. And then he finally tells him the truth that he's an orphan and calls him a bastard in a basket, and that nobody loved him. And he picked him up in the middle of the desert in a basket. And he's got none of me in him and all of this stuff. And I think that it's one of the greatest lines in the entire movie. HW has his sign language interpreter say to him, I thank God that I have none of you in me, after he realizes that he's not lying, that he's telling the truth, that he's just telling him the thing that he knows will hurt him the most, which is a theme in this movie. It's a theme that I've come across in my personal life a lot, that I have seen, people in my family do, that just say the worst, even if they're not true, even if they're a lie, they'll say the worst thing to try to make you feel even worse than you ever have before. And I've taken some of that, and I've been in terrible arguments before with people where I've taken everything. Oh, my controller has disconnected. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Okay. And I've just wanted to hurt them. So I've said terrible things, and they might not have even been true. I just knew that the lie would hurt them even more because that's what I knew before and things of that nature. So it resonated with me so deeply. And at the end, in my opinion, the greatest scene in this entire movie, and one of the greatest scenes of all time, the bowling alley scene, which everybody just wants to meme on because, I drink your milkshake, which is a great line. It really is. It's phenomenal, and it's very funny. I drink it up. I love that. I think that's great. But everybody focuses on just that in the meme, okay? I don't care about the meme. Paul Dano in that scene, playing off of Daniel Day-Lewis, he does make Daniel Day-Lewis even more ruthless, even more brutal. The way that Eli comes in to see him, and Daniel's just on the floor, passed out drunk. He's completely devolved into being a full-blown, shaking the moment that he wakes up, can't even stand alcoholic. It's gotten to the point where it's the worst that it could possibly be. And Eli shows up, this sort of high and mighty figure, smiling this smug little look that he's about to get his way, that he's about to have Daniel, under his thumb. and it just goes the complete opposite direction. And so Daniel says that he'll give him everything that he wants. He wants $100,000 for the only piece of land and this whole major city that he's never been able to develop. He has no idea that this land has already been drilled. And so Daniel makes him say that he is a false prophet and that God is a superstition, because this entire time, something that I've forgotten to mention, Eli, played by Paul Dano, who is the counterpart to Mr. Plainview, is running this church for the town called the Church of the Third Revelation. Now, this is straight up a cult. He is a false prophet. He's using the word of God in the worst way possible, making people believe that he can heal them, that he can do all of these incredible things so that they will give him money and power, and that is really all that he wants at the end of the day. That's why Eli knows that Mr. Plainview is a snake oil salesman. And that's why Mr. Plainview knows that Eli is a snake oil salesman. The bullshitters always can smell the other bullshitters. Everybody knows this. It's a term that we've heard a million times. That is what is going on. So the power shifts back towards Daniel as he's, by the way, eating a steak in the worst way possible. Sort of like a metaphor. I saw a YouTube comment about this, and I don't know if it's one of those things where everyone's thinking into it too much, but I don't know why there'd be any other reason for this. He's eating a steak in this way where he's chewing the meat and sucking up all of the juice out of the steak and then spitting out the husk of flavorless meat at the end of his chewing, sort of like he does with these towns. He drains them for their precious oil and the blood of the lamb and things that he says that were on Bandy's tract that Eli's trying to sell him. He drinks it every day and doesn't leave anything for anybody else besides a shriveled up husk with no flavor left. I thought that was so beautiful, and I thought if that was intentional, which I'm sure it was, stellar. I mean, just stellar. From either Paul Thomas Anderson or Daniel Day-Lewis, absolutely stellar. The power dynamic shifts right after he makes him say that he's a false prophet 100 times, the same way that Eli made Mr. Plainview say, I've abandoned my child, I'm a sinner, all of these things. Makes him do the exact same thing, and as soon as he's satisfied with his little performance, he decides to tell him that those areas have been drilled and he's asking him for something that's already been done and he can do nothing for it. Eli then just completely shrivels up and becomes this lifeless form of himself, letting Mr. Plainview know, yes, actually I am having money struggles and I do need your help, and please, if you could just give me this one time, this would be the thing that will help me. And Daniel knows that's exactly where he wants him. And the things that he says to him about him not being the chosen son, and he lies to him and says that he gave his brother $10,000 and that his brother came and said, my family's stupid, you can take their oil, and all of this stuff. Eli is just crumbling as he's making these things the worst that it possibly can be. He's just telling him everything that he knows will hurt the deepest inside of him. And it's just so brutal. It's just twisting the dagger over and over and over again. And he starts to say something about if we could just get this lease. And Daniel's telling him about this drainage, and that because he owns all the other areas, he owns all of the drainage coming from underneath Bandy's property. So he can just go a little bit deeper and get all the oil, which he already did. Eli keeps begging for him, and he delivers my favorite line delivery in the entire film. And this is going to get a little bit loud. He looks at him and just goes, drainage! Drainage, Eli, you boy! And it's got drool falling from his mouth. And he goes, drain dry. I'm so sorry. It is chilling. I have goosebumps right now talking about it. I know I'm getting to the point where I am repeating myself over and over again. I knew this video wasn't going to be great. I needed to just put on a game and just talk about this movie because it's been on my mind that I've talked to my girlfriend and I've talked to my friends about it, and I have no one else to speak to this about. So enjoy all of this, okay? At the very end, when he brutally murders Eli with a bowling pin in the bowling alley and sits there and says the final words of the film, I'm finished, and the way he delivers it with the beautiful, beautiful soundtrack that comes in at the very end, I thought, as soon as this movie was over, that it was the greatest thing that I have ever seen. It is a masterpiece. It is in my top 3 for sure. And it's not even close. It's almost in number one. I just need to watch it more than a few times. So listen. Soundtrack, I thought was great. At first, I did not really understand it. I thought that it was a little bit too... aggressive. There was a point where it was getting a little bit annoying when the derrick was burning and there was like that loud, thunderous beating of the drums over and over again. It was like beating me in the head. But as I watched it the second time, it's perfect. It's a masterpiece. I think a guy from Radiohead composed it. Dude had never even made a score for a movie ever. All of the scenes were beautiful. Paul Thomas Anderson did a phenomenal job with everything. The casting was great. Daniel Day-Lewis, that is the greatest acting performance that I have ever seen in my entire life. Pacing was perfect. I love the no dialogue at the first 15 minutes. I would never skip that while watching it over again. It's so crucial to the story. I thought from start to finish, every single scene, every moment in this movie had me captivated. I didn't want to walk away. I didn't want to look away. And the entire time, it's just like watching this brutal train wreck of greed that has overtaken a 1910 oil tycoon with the most silver tongue that you've ever heard before in your entire life. So please, if you have not seen There Will Be Blood, get around to it. I know it took me a while to do the same, but if you can get around to it eventually, put aside 3 hours. You are going to love it, and I hope that it sticks with you the same way that it stuck with me. If you're still here, listening to my spit-filled sentences, I'm frothing at the mouth, I've been talking for so long, please hit the like, subscribe, and continue watching this channel, okay? I took an 88-day break because I just didn't want to get on camera. I didn't want to set it up. There were all these barriers, all these excuses. So I thought to myself, what's a way to not have any more excuses? Well, I have to be motivated and I have to be inspired. Boom. Daniel Day-Lewis, thanks for that, buddy. You got me right back to where I'm at, and I want to keep making videos, and Gangs of New York is coming next. Also, I just didn't want any of these distractions, excuses, thinking about the way I look on camera. Yes, I know I'm fat. No, I don't really care if people call me fat. No, I'm not going to take down these other videos of me on the channel before, but I don't want to sit there and get my hair done and try to figure out lighting. I don't even know how to edit. So this is what it's going to be for this foreseeable future. We just hit 100 subscribers. There's the Law Abiding Citizen review is getting views consistently. I don't know why. Same thing with the Saltburn review. Shout out to that. I appreciate you guys. I am going to rate There Will Be Blood 9.5 out of 10. I really am struggling to find things about this movie that I would have preferred if they did something different. I have taken this media at face value, and I just want to keep it in the exact form that it exists in. And it's beautiful. And if you haven't had a chance to watch it, or if you have, I'm just glad that we both know now that that thing out there exists, okay? So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Again, my name is Carter. I hope that my music and everything has stayed good throughout this video, because I'm not going to listen to this shit back at all. This is going to be about 28 and a half minutes of me ranting that is going up on the YouTube channel tomorrow, or probably just tonight as soon as I'm done making a thumbnail. So, guys, thank you all for watching, and again, I really, really appreciate you if you've stayed through this entire time. I really want to make this YouTube thing work as a little side hustle and get to the point where I can make you guys at least 3 videos a week. I think if I watch a stupid movie like Soul Plane or, you know, Pineapple Express, it'll be a little bit easier to just sit there and say, oh yeah, this was really funny, these were the funniest moments. But in a movie like this, it's going to take me longer. I had to watch this twice before I made my review. It would have been a disservice to not at least watch it twice, and I honestly think it's a little bit of a disservice to not watch it 5 times before I review it, which I will likely do before, you know, we get to June. So, thank you guys very much. I appreciate you all for watching, and there's oil in those hills. So we're going to go get it, we're going to find it, and we're going to find it together. All right, like and subscribe. Thank you. I have to end this now. There's no editing, so I had to pause it and go to my other monitor. All right, goodbye now.